It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to episode 41 of the Stoned Witches Hour. On this podcast, two best friends who found themselves living all the way across the country from each other hang out and tell each other frightfully paranormal tales while smoking as much crystal-coated ganja as they can. Representing the western half of the USA, I'm Layla.
I'm really high today. Wait, I'm Chelle, but I'm high today.
And this is different from every other day. How?
It's not, but here on the East Coast, there's like this vibe, and it melds with my weed.
What kind of vibe? Like a fall, crisp, get out and do things vibe? You sounded kind of sleepy.
There is something, when you live in Salem, there's something called the Halloween hangover,
I believe it.
and that shit's real, man. That shit's real, real.
Have the crowds died down at all, or is it still absolute bedlam out there?
Man, I haven't left the house.
I don't blame you one
Like,
bit.
I haven't left the house. I do need to leave the house tomorrow, but yeah, thus far, I'm recovering. I'm recovering.
Yeah, well, there was certainly a lot of spooky festivities going on. You and I partook of quite a few of them. And then there was the big Samhain Halloween weekend thing.
You know, it was crazy. I've heard some initial reports of 250 plus thousand people.
Whoa,
Wow.
just on Samhain?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And here's something interesting. In years past, when I've been here, the costumes are far and wide, and I can't even begin to give you an idea of the types of costumes because there were so many. This year, no. This year the vibe was, if you were wearing black, that was the thing. There wasn't really any costume except, okay, I will say Sanderson sister overload. But other than the Sanderson sisters, there wasn't really a lot of costumes this year. Everybody was wearing black, everybody was wearing witch hats, but like there wasn't like the costumes like you used to see. Like I remember last year seeing like Freddy Krueger's and Michael Myers and Jason's and clowns and you name it, vampires. This year, everybody just wore black. I don't know. It was
Mhm.
weird.
I wonder if everyone's just kind of feeling more the need for protection and less the need to be exuberant and costumed.
I don't know. I don't know, but it almost felt more witchy.
Ooh, okay. That sounds interesting. Well, unfortunately, I was not there for Samhain itself. In the past, they have had public rituals, public Samhain celebrations. Were there any circle celebrations out there
There
this year?
was at the Commons at 5 p.m. There was a public circle. I did not go. I had my little grandson visiting from out of
Yeah,
town.
a little witchling himself.
Yeah, such a doll. So I did not partake, but they did have a public thing down in the Common. But I think what's interesting, and I think what may have switched the vibe kind of, we've had 2 years of being locked inside more or less. And no matter where you're from or what have you, we've all had that same experience. I think a lot of people have found witchcraft in the last 2 to 3 years.
It does seem like there is an explosion. It's all over TikTok, it's all over
It
YouTube,
is. It is.
everywhere.
And I think that a lot of people that have come into witchcraft recently have come into Wicca, who've come into paganism in the last few years. That was kind of the vibe of people, like a lot of witches in the under 30 category.
Oh, I love it. A lot of new witches, a lot of,
Yes,
younger people, Gen Z coming into
that
it.
was the
That's great.
vibe. That's been the vibe for at least the last week or two. It just seems like these are all people that are coming to find their Mecca. I guess
That's
that's the only
fantastic.
way I can describe it. People weren't here to celebrate Halloween, the commercial Halloween as they have been in past years. People were here to find their Mecca, I feel like.
They were there for Samhain. They were there
Yeah.
for the witchcraft, for the magic of it.
Yeah, yeah. And that was another reason I really had no interest in going to the public ritual this year because there was a couple 100,000 people. Like, what the heck? I'm a little too much of a hermit for that type of crowd.
Yeah, that's hard. That's difficult. I will admit, when I first went, I don't know how many tens of thousands, but it wasn't that many. I went to a ritual on the Commons and it was freaking amazing.
But
But
that's a lot of people.
it is a lot of people. But for me, again, I was looking for my Mecca at that time. I didn't know any other witches. I hadn't met you yet. I hadn't met the community that I worked with. I didn't have a coven. I learned everything I knew from books and from online and from what little information I could gather. So when I went to Samhain at Salem, the commercial Halloween was the furthest thing from my mind. All I could think of was the magic of the witches' new year, and finding other people of magic and power and witches and just being among them. It was
And
amazing.
that seemed to be the majority of, in my opinion, the tourists this go round. They were looking more for the spiritual aspect instead of the party aspect, I guess.
That's fabulous. I think that's really great.
So yeah, no, it was a great time. Oh my God, the weather. Holy crap. For folks that are living on the East Coast, this was amazing. This is not what we're used to. Remember, Layla, that one Samhain we went camping where we would do our community rituals and we woke up to like 6 inches of snow outside of our tent?
Yes.
This was like 60 degrees, man. Polar
Yeah.
opposite. It was definitely a good night for magic. It was a good night for trick or treating. It was a good night for everything.
Ah, that's fabulous. Now, did you happen to do any personal ritual for Samhain yourself, or?
I just was able to do something real quick. Just kind of more some ancestor offering. I did have visitors, so I didn't have my full freedom of time and space. But I had a little ancestor altar up and talked with my child about grandparents past,
That's a lovely way to spend the evening.
and then I outside offered a little weed to the ancestors.
Yeah, I have to say that a nugget of weed is always on my ancestor altar too. One of my, not my ancestor, but in my husband's family, very near and dear to us. I always leave some weed on the altar for him on Samhain. And so I set up my mute supper with a plate offering for the ancestors and our beloved dead. And then I took that outside to a little stone altar that I have there and cut an apple lengthwise. So it had the star, and poured out some little bit of alcohol offering and had a candle and a nice little ritual out back at midnight. So that was really nice.
Well, I was able to take my grandson outside, and I think he saw the moon. I pointed at it. He was looking in that direction, but he's a little baby. Who knows?
Oh, he's a little witchling. You know he saw the moon.
We talked about the moon and we talked about the leaves, and we tried to talk to him about his little ancestors, and he
Aw.
giggled. And then it was so cute, they say that kids see and hear things that adults don't always. This little child, let me tell you, he was talking to somebody and somebody was going all around the room because he was just watching something on the ceiling and there was nothing there.
I would not be surprised if it wasn't your grandfather.
I know, and that's what I was thinking at the time. I'm like, I know who he's talking to.
If there's any spirit that stays with you, whether I don't know if he's as apparent to you anymore, does he seem to be less and less in your life, or does he kind of come and go? But his energy doesn't seem to be as strong as it once
Definitely
was.
less and less. Absolutely less and less. It kind of, I don't know. I think back in the day when I know you had seen him a lot,
Hmm.
especially, I think I had a lot more turmoil in my life, and he would show up when there was turmoil and he
That
would
makes
back off
sense.
when there wasn't. And I just think maybe the fewer and far between visits maybe correlate with he would show up at turmoil and I have a less fucked up life now.
Makes absolute sense. I totally get that. I think we like to feel
Connectedness.
yeah, we like to feel our family, the people who have our backs to be around us when we need that energy. So it makes sense that he'd be there at those times.
But I think that one thing we all sometimes do is spend Samhain almost begging them back. Come talk to me, come talk to me. And then you have that, how come this one didn't show up? Or weren't they listening? And I think that sometimes that makes sound sad for people because they kind of try to reach out. It's like calling and they don't answer.
Sure, trying to make a connection, and for whatever reason you can't. That can be very sad, very lonely.
And I think that's a misconception. People think that because it is when the veil is the thinnest, that that's like a guaranteed connection, and it's not.
Right, right. And just because it's later in the year, I mean, the veil is still very thin right now and it hasn't like slammed shut or anything.
Right.
So you can still continue to try that, but there's nothing to say that 4 months from now you couldn't again try to contact your beloved dead. You don't have to right now, and it's not impossible later.
Right. Right. So do you have any spooky stories? I don't know. I think I'm spooked out this whole draining Salem month of people and spookiness and ghosts. For the love of God, give the people something, Layla.
Well, I'm going to pack another bowl of my homegrown weed here now that I'm back with my stash and can fill a little bowl here. I got some nice purple straw nana going.
So I got this stuff. It's new. I'm trying it. It's called Boo Berry. And
Ah,
it was very Halloween sounding. And you know, who doesn't love Boo Berry cereal? So I
that's
thought I'd give
right.
it a go. Let me tell you, this shit fucks you up. Folks, if you
Nice.
can't tell in my voice, this stuff is like, I think it's like meld into the bed stuff because I'm definitely more subdued than usual.
Awesome. And I love the name, Booberry.
Well, like I said, I got it the week of Halloween. How could I not get it?
Exactly. Is it sweet?
You know, let me give it a sniff. I don't even know.
You're so high, you don't remember what it tasted like.
Here's one thing. If you are going to make weed so hard to open, don't.
Oh, does it have a child safety cap?
Yeah. You know, very hoppy.
Mm. Okay, so not so much sweet. That kind of hoppy green smell.
Yeah. That's the best way I can
Nice.
call it.
Well, I can tell by your face and how relaxed you look that you are definitely really high. And that's a good thing
Yeah.
because I have a spooky kind of Halloweeny story for you, Shell.
Ooh, what you got? What you got?
I have an urban legend out of Texas about the Candy Lady.
Ooh. Ooh. I'm glad this is post Halloween because I just
Right?
ate a bunch of candy.
Yeah, she's super, super creepy. It all starts in a little town outside of Dallas, Texas. Some reports put it outside of Austin, but I couldn't find a name for the town. All just said it was a small rural town in the early 1900s. So, in this little town, parents woke up one day and discovered that their son wasn't in his bed. Not only was he not in his bed, but it looked like the bed hadn't even been slept in. It was perfectly made, and the window was open.
Weird.
And their young son was nowhere to be found, somewhere between 8 and 10, depending on who's telling the story. So these parents were distraught. This was their only child. He was doted on, adored, and he loved his parents. By all accounts, he was a very happy child. No reason to run away. But of course, this was dismissed as a runaway. And the parents tried everything they could to get the townspeople, the sheriff, anyone to listen to them. Their son would not run away, but no one would listen. There was no body, no signs of foul play, and it just looked like he'd opened the window after going to bed that night and disappeared. So they kind of closed the case, and the parents just got more and more upset as the days went on until about a week later, another child disappeared from their bed. After putting their daughter, their middle child, to bed, the next morning, these parents woke up, and when she didn't come down from breakfast, went to her room and discovered that her bed had not been slept in and her window was open.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now, this was taken a little bit more seriously because, girls in the early 1900s don't run away or something. And, being the second child that had disappeared under the same circumstances, it seems a little more mysterious, a little more urgent this time. But again,
Blame the witches. Blame the witches.
they didn't actually, but which is surprising.
Shocking. Seriously.
They searched the town, they searched the nearby woods. They could find no trace of this child and no signs of foul play. So now the whole town is kind of on edge. And of course, they're telling the children to be home by dark and they're checking on their kids in the middle of the night. Everything seemed to die down until another child went missing.
Oh, geez.
Quickly after that, two more children went missing on the same day. Two best friends, two boys, went out to play and never came back. And again, no foul play, no bodies, no nothing. They couldn't find any reason why these children were disappearing. So shortly after the two children disappeared on the same day, a small group of remaining children in the town started telling their parents that they'd been finding candy on their windowsills in the morning after waking up.
Oh.
And the candy had started appearing on their windowsills shortly before the first boy disappeared.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez.
They said that inside the candy wrappers sometimes would be a note. And occasionally the note would say, "Come outside and play with me."
Oh, God.
And the notes were always signed, "The Candy Lady." The children hadn't said anything about the candy because at first they hadn't realized that it was connected in any way. And kids love candy. Who's going to, interrupt a source of free candy, right?
I mean, I don't know. It sounds creepy.
Yeah. The sister of one of the last two boys, one of the two boys that went missing on the same day, his sister is one of the biggest reasons why the children came forward, because she said her brother had been getting candy. And the day before he disappeared, he had gotten a note in the candy that said, "Come outside and play with me." And her brother had said he was going to go find the candy lady with his friend who had also gotten candy. And that was the last that she had seen him.
Oh, my God. Why does this remind me of it and going to the water? Oh, my God, no.
Right? Well, it's the same, that childhood good thing, right? A clown is supposed to be a good thing of childhood, a happy memory. Candy is supposed to be good and a happy memory. The candy lady should be a nice childhood thing, but in both of those stories, it's very twisted. So the town, of course, the sheriff's department, the local police, and the town are very involved now, very invested in trying to find this candy lady and to see if they can figure out what happens. But for a little while, at least to their knowledge, no children get any candy and no one goes missing. And there's one police officer in particular is determined to find out what happened. And he has been questioning the families of these missing children. And then one night, candy starts appearing again.
Oh, shit.
No one sees anyone come or go, and everyone's on high alert.
Does anyone eat the candy?
Yes, the children have all been eating the candy from the very beginning.
Okay.
Now, when the candy shows up, they give it to their parents, and the parents, of course, suspect that this candy has probably been poisoned or that it's been drugged in some way. They check out the candy, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. No needles in it, no poison, no drugs, no nothing. It's just candy in a plain wrapper, no notes. And then a farmer walking his field finds what looks to be a ball of wrapped candy on the ground.
Weird.
Yeah, just kind of out there on the road next to his field. So when he picks up the wrapped candy, he discovers it's not candy, it's teeth.
Oh, my God.
Inside are children's teeth, and some of them have cavities. Some of them are very rotten, and some of them are in very good shape, but it's a whole bunch of small children's teeth.
Oh, my God.
So there's no more clues, unfortunately. Of course, the town is completely freaked out at this point. And then this police officer that was investigating it also goes missing.
Wow.
His body was found the next day in a ditch not too far from where the candy wrapper with the teeth in it was found. And his eyes had been stabbed with forks.
Oh, my God.
There were no visible marks on his body, and his pockets were stuffed over full with candy, the same kind of candy that had been left on the children's windowsills. Then, when they did the autopsy, it was discovered that he had died of poisoning.
Not forks in his eyes?
Not forks in his eyes. I don't know.
Oh,
the
my
forks in his
God.
eyes seems like a really weird detail, but the thought is that maybe he had gotten a little too close and that this was a warning to kind of stay away.
Yeah, but it seems like the person's only leaving candy and not doing anything except leaving a bag of teeth. I haven't seen no harm, no foul yet.
Well, they kidnapped all the kids and they never came back.
You don't know that.
That's true. You don't know that for sure. No more kidnappings happened for a couple of years. And then the candy started showing up again. And a couple more kids went missing.
Ah, shit.
And then nothing happened. They were never seen, never found. And it seems to resurface, every few decades.
Oh, so it can't be one person.
Not anymore. The legend says that they're being kidnapped by the candy lady who takes them somewhere, pulls out all their teeth, and then leaves them to die.
You're not going to die from your teeth being pulled out.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe she poisons them. I'm not sure. Maybe she tortures them to death, but kidnaps them with candy and pulls out all their teeth.
What a bitch.
Right? So, although it seems to have lasted since the early 1900s, so obviously it can't be a mortal candy lady, there is kind of a truth to this tale.
Oh boy. Tell.
There is an origin story, and even better, it involves an asylum.
Ooh, it always does.
Right? I know how you love an asylum.
And I do.
Is the asylum in Texas. I believe it's the North Texas Insane Asylum.
What was this, like a dental assistant at the asylum? Like what?
That would be a good guess, but no. So this urban legend actually starts with a woman named Clara. Clara Crane was a young woman in the 1800s who moved to Texas and met a much older man that she became involved with and married. Clara married Leonard Gilbert Crane, who was a good 16 years her senior, and he was a very wealthy farm owner in Ellis County, Texas. So she marries Leonard, and they have an okay marriage. She mainly married him for money, which was the rumor, and he married her because he wanted children.
That's kind of what it was back then, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to really be any particular bad thing about their marriage other than the big age gap, but I guess that was kind of common then. Very soon after getting married, Clara finds herself pregnant, and she gives birth to a healthy baby girl that they named Marcella. And Clara, unfortunately, living in this farm on the outskirts of town, is kind of lonely. And her husband's much older than her. They don't have a lot in common. And he's very busy with the farm, and he's kind of a drunk from all accounts. So she busies herself with Marcella, and they are very, very close. And she calls her daughter Marcy. So one day, Leonard decided to take little Marcy with him as he goes about his chores on the farm. Unfortunately, he was wasted drunk, and he wasn't paying attention to little Marcy. And there's an unspecified accident. There's a newspaper article about it, but they don't exactly say what accident caused Marcella's death. Just that the poor little 5-year-old girl was killed while under her father's.
But he was probably drinking.
Exactly. Clara was distraught with grief, completely beside herself, and blamed her husband. There was an investigation, and they found no wrongdoing. They said it was just an unavoidable accident. But Clara knew her husband was drunk and knew that he was not the best father on the best of days. So she kind of harbored a grudge. Over the next couple years, the couple just got more and more estranged, and they fought more and more often. By some accounts in the town, got a little crazy. She obviously had some form of PTSD or over the grief of her daughter, which is
I don't blame her, Jesus.
Completely understandable. But her husband isn't in any way caring or understanding or help take care of her.
He's just moved on. He's just totally moved on from it.
And so she kind of holds a grudge and starts to form a plan of revenge. And then one day she made her husband his favorite candy. She made him some caramels. Unbeknownst to him, she'd laced them with poison.
Oh, Jesus. Of course she did.
Of course she did. So she fed her husband his favorite caramel candy, and he promptly died. According to the newspaper article, this was found when a neighbor the next day came to the house and found Clara outside trying to build a very large fire. And she seemed to be very agitated. The newspaper says, quote, in a shaken and frenzied state. So the neighbor gets the sheriff to come out and to see what's going on. When the sheriff's deputy, Fred Springer, got to her home, Clara actually started attacking him and became physically violent, and they had to restrain her and take her into custody.
Oh, wow.
After they restrained her, that's when they found the body of her husband in the house and determined that he had been poisoned to death. According to the newspaper, she faced first-degree murder charges, and she did go to trial and was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And they put her in the North Texas Insane Asylum, also called the Terrell Hospital. And she stayed there for several years. However, the North Texas Lunatic Asylum had some budget problems.
Don't they all?
They needed to cut down on the population. And so Clara was told that she would be getting out. Now, Clara didn't really get any better while she was at the hospital. According to the doctors and nurses, she spent most of her time in her room talking to herself, and she had even fashioned a doll out of bed sheets and named it Marcy.
Oh, geez.
She spent most of her days playing with her doll Marcy and talking to it. So when she found out that she was able to leave, she wrote a letter to her sister. And in the letter, she says, "Dearest Aggie, I am elated. I have been informed by Dr. Matthews that Marcy and I will be returning home in less than 3 weeks. As you can imagine, Marcy can barely contain her excitement. Every night she asks, 'Is tomorrow the day when we go home, Mother?' Very soon I will be able to tell her yes." That tells you a little bit of what her state of mind was.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was released in 1899 due to overcrowding of the hospital. She was never seen or heard from again.
Not even from the sister?
Not even from the sister.
Oh boy, she went not so cuckoo.
And then in 1903, the first child that went missing in that little town outside of Dallas was less than a mile from her old farm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's horrible.
So the urban legend goes, Clara Crane is the candy lady, and she's somehow
Probably.
taking her revenge and trying to kidnap all these children. And for whatever reason, pulling out all their teeth, they've never found any of the bodies of these children. Just that pile of teeth in a candy wrapper.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
So that's it.
That's like actually kind of spooky.
Right? That's kind of a creepy tale out of Texas. And I thought that was very fitting. The candy lady. Nice urban legend for this time of year.
Absolutely. I mean, you're good at these like perfectly timed stories, and that was a
Well, thank
perfectly
you.
timed story.
I try. I do try.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I love them. How fun. I mean, I remember you talking about the time we did Samhain at Community and everyone told ghost stories. And I don't know, maybe that kind of bubbled up in my subconscious when we had the idea to do this podcast. But how fun is it to tell spooky stories? I mean, it's a great way to connect.
And honestly, I think that even some of the urban legends have truth to them. So I love spooky stories because, yeah, there might be a million white ladies out there, but there's some truth to each story.
Right, right.
So yeah, they might have been turned into something fantastical, but there's a root of truth to each ghost story.
Absolutely. Now, this particular story, I saw a little bit of information online. I also have relatives in Texas who have heard of this urban legend, and they provided quite a bit of the information for this particular tale as well.
Oh, how cool.
Right? How neat. So there's the true story of Clara Crane, and you can find newspaper articles of her. And the North Texas Insane Asylum did exist, and it is a place I'm going to cover at a later time and see if there's any other paranormal tales that come of it.
Nice.
I'm not exactly sold on the whole idea of a creepy lady leaving candy on the windowsills and kidnapping children for decades, but it certainly makes for, it could be a variation of the boogeyman tale that parents told their children, don't accept candy from strangers kind of thing.
But there could also be truth to it, and we really don't have enough substantial evidence either way.
That's right. We know at least that she killed her husband with caramel.
Right? Now I know everybody's sitting there wiping their tears because poor Chelle just doesn't have a spook for you tonight. But next week, I'm going all out. There's been recently a bunch of UFO cases released, and I'm going to talk about some UFO stuff next week.
That sounds fantastic. I cannot wait. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the Mission Inn in Riverside, California, and all of its rumored hauntings.
And I know that UFOs kind of are everywhere, and they are kind of dominant on the West Coast. But because there's been a lot of stuff released in the last week or so, I just wanted to chat about that.
Oh my gosh, UFOs have been in the news so much lately. I've seen so many videos come out. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
UFOs are something you can cover all the time and have it be different. So I know we've touched on it before, but we're circling back because there's new stuff.
Well, it's like saying there's only one ghost story and you can only talk about it. There's so many. I'm so glad. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Stoned Witches Hour. I hope you enjoyed our Candy Lady terrorizing tale.
And you know what, guys? I promise next week I'm going to have more upbeat weed because this stuff, this is like a put you in the bed and leave you there kind of weed.
Maybe Chelle needs a little bit of a tea break, and then we'll come back with some fabulous stories. And super creepy cryptids, too. When's your next cryptid tale, Chelle? I want to know.
Well, see, actually, everybody's been doing cryptids a lot lately, I've been seeing. Maybe we'll circle back. There's one I've been thinking about. I don't want to give it away quite yet, but there's one I've been thinking about. This UFO thing. I've just been seeing it so much. I just want to bounce to that first.
Well, awesome. Then I'm very much looking forward to episode 42.
Oh my God, 42. Holy crap.
Right? The meaning of life, the universe, and everything should be
Right?
an excellent episode.
Oh my God, the meaning of life. And I already thought about UFOs. There it is. There it is.
Whoa, boom. That's
There
it
it
right
is.
there. Oh my gosh, mic drop. Chelle has solved it. All right, folks, tune in next week for episode 42 of the Stoned Witches Hour on Wednesday at 4:20 a.m. And we will tell you some creepy tales and some truly out-of-this-world UFO stories.
Stay high and grab your tinfoil hats for this next one.
Keep it creepy. We'll see you next week.